Let's
Okay.
introduce ourselves, huh?
Mhm.
We have to introduce ourselves.
Yeah,
Uh,
so
I'm
Great.
Gabby. Hi.
I'm Adam.
uh,
Saus.
and I'm Betsy. Yeah, and we're doing the software engineering final. Uh, is it team 3, right?
I
Or
think
team
Mhm.
4?
team 3 or 4.
Team something.
Okay, well, we're one of the teams, and we're doing a pair programming-ish on our
Oh,
questions. But
Mhm.
so who
are
wants
you
to
guys
go
giving
first?
echo?
A little bit.
It's not really like an issue,
Mhm.
What? And what?
like echo from
Oh, never
Saus's.
mind. No, I had like a separate window open that was also playing it on like a delay for some reason.
Oh, okay.
So it's all good.
Okay, so who wants to go first?
I can go first. All right. So I picked question 27 and 28. So question 27 is answer the following, and then there are 6 parts. So part A is define and describe the DOM. And I said DOM stands for Document Object Model. It is an interface that is a standard representation of and defines the logical structure and hierarchy of an HTML or XML document.
Can you screen share it?
Oh, sure. Yeah, hold on. All right. So yeah, so that's A. B, when user interaction generates a browser event, what can JavaScript code do with respect to the DOM? It can be used to access and inspect DOM elements and modify their values and other attributes. AJAX stands for asynchronous JavaScript native XML. It's used to asynchronously make requests to the server. The tool used to test JavaScript and AJAX is Jasmine, an open source testing framework based on RSpec. Um, the advantage of using AJAX to make HTTP requests is that the content on the page can be changed without requiring a redraw. And graceful degradation means a web page should not be designed so it's unusable without JavaScript. If a browser can't run JavaScript, it should still be served a working version of the web page. So then question 28 is describe and discuss 4 language features JavaScript that shares with Ruby. So both languages are interpreted and functional, both are object-oriented, both are dynamically typed, and both have anonymous functions. JavaScript does not have classes. It's a prototype-based language, which is a style of object-oriented programming where objects inherit from clones. Um, JavaScript code should interact with HTML to alter the functionality and appearance of item elements on the page, while adhering to the principles of graceful degradation. The JS API is broadly used to refer to the browser functionality exposed to JavaScript and the ways in which JavaScript code in a browser can manipulate the content of the HTML page. jQuery is a library that layers on top of the JS API and solves cross-compatibility issues with JavaScript code across different browsers. So those are my answers, like overall.
That sounds good.
Yeah.
I guess I'll go next. You can see it, right?
Yeah.
Hmm.
Okay, so I had 23 and 25. So Appendix C consists of pseudocode and Ruby code, which, by the way, is the appendix is like at the bottom of the test if you wanted to look at the method. But I used I have it on for the graph. I have it like as a written version, so I can like scan that in and do that way. But I thought this was better. Use like JFlap. And so B is determine the following with respect to the flow graph, which is regions, predicates, nodes, and edges. So there was 8 regions, 7 predicates, 25 nodes, and 31 edges. The way that I did it. and the cyclomatic complexity is 8, and the 3 different methods are it's either to calculate the complexity as the number of regions, the number of predicates plus 1, or the number of edges minus the number of nodes plus 2. So, and then part D is derive and list the basis path set for the given method. So, because the complexity is 8, it means there's a maximum of 8 different methods. So I have 8 methods here that go through all the different kinds of ways that you can go, and it's not repeating. And how this information can be used when designing a unit test is it makes sure that you test every possible option for the method, and so you don't miss anything. Okay, 25 was explain the difference between authentication and authorization. So authentication is the process of verifying the identity of a user by obtaining some sort of credentials and using those credentials to verify the user's identity. If the credentials are valid, the authorization process starts. The authorization is the process of allowing the authenticated users to access the resources by checking whether the user has access rights to the system. It helps you control access rights by granting or denying specific permissions to an authenticated user. So, what's part B? I have to fix like the actual, like it's FGH. I don't know why I said that. But what's the relationship between third-party authentication and single sign-on? So third-party authentication enables single sign-on by allowing a SaaS app to request that the user authenticate themselves via a third-party provider. Once it's done so, the provider sends a token to the requesting app, proving that the user authenticated himself correctly, and possibly encoding additional privileges the user grants to the requesting app. Give an example of an authorization provider. So an example would be like signing up for Pinterest, and you can sign up by signing in through Facebook if you have an account, and Facebook would be the authorization provider for that. The next one is what would you use to clearly indicate that a user has been authenticated in your Rails app? So the cleanest way to do that would be abstracting the concept of a session. So when the user successfully authenticates, a session is created by storing the authenticated user's ID in the session, and when she signs out, the session is destroyed by deleting the information from the session. And then how can you identify model attributes that should be excluded from mass assignment? Use ATTR protected and ATTR accessible to identify the model attributes that should be excluded from mass assignment. And what is an association, and what kind of associations are possible among application entities? An association is a logical relationship between two types of entities in a software architecture. Types are one-to-one, one-to-many, and many-to-many. And identify and describe the mechanism provided by relational databases to model associations. So relational databases use foreign keys to represent these relationships. The foreign key is a column in one table whose job is to reference the primary key of another table to establish an association between objects represented by those tables. And then the last question, which we can.
Alright, that sounded pretty good. If nobody has any comments, I guess I can go next.
Go for it.
Okay. So I had question 3 and 4, and question 3 was pretty much going over 2 process models for like app development, and going over various aspects of them, like pros and cons, like when would you want to use this, how much would it cost compared to other process models, do you need like a skilled or experienced development team, stuff like that. So the first one I went over was RAD, which is the rapid app development. And pretty much it's based around this 5-step cycle that multiple teams carry out in parallel. So multiple teams are working on different parts of the same project, and it's pretty much meant for app development in under 3 months. But the major downfall is that it costs a lot because you have to employ all these teams, and it's also considered to be kind of difficult to implement because you need skilled developers, because not only are developers collaborating within their own team, but they're also collaborating with other teams, yeah, and stuff like that. So it's tough for inexperienced developers to like do correctly. It's nice because there's a lot of opportunity for customer input, and like there's a lot of communication with the customer because all these teams can go to the customer separately and ask them if it's what they want. So that's kind of nice. I went over the steps, but I won't read them to you guys. It's just like whatever. Yeah, and then I have the pros and cons down here. So reduced development time, which is kind of like the overall goal. And pretty much the cost of the reduced time is the higher cost of like the overall project. Other advantages are it increases reusability, and you don't run into as many integration issues because integration is solved at every step along the way. That's gone over in the process. And then the other process model was a waterfall process model, which is pretty simple. Pretty much it's 6 steps, and after the 6 steps, your project's done. But the thing is, you can't move on to the next step until you've fully completed the step prior. And then at the end of every step, you review the step you just completed, make sure it's what's best for the project, and then you plan the next step. It's better for small teams because the main pitfall is that if you run into unexpected like requirements, or you realize that your design isn't as good as, or your design is wrong, then going back in the process model really takes a lot of time. Like, it's difficult to do. So it's better for small projects and small teams because the smaller teams mean everybody's on the same page. Everybody knows what stage they're on and what they want to get out of that stage, so there's no miscommunication. And it's better for smaller projects because you don't run into as many pitfalls or as many like obstacles along the way, because that really slows down the process. It's also pretty simple, so like inexperienced developers or like smaller teams, it's like an easy step-by-step to follow. Yeah, and I just go over the steps again, and then major advantages and disadvantages. I made sure to put that the model pretty much breaks down if the design is flawed in some way, or if the problem isn't really understood. So like it's really hard to take a step back in the project. And then my next question was about extreme programming. Yeah, so you guys can read the question. Extreme programming is pretty much like the fastest way to. It's based off these 12 points, and it's like hypothetically the fastest way to produce a high quality application. And it's actually developed by one of the guys who started Agile. And yeah, like it says, it leads to rapid development of high quality software. But you have to follow these like 12 like steps, or what we call them, points. Extreme programming is kind of similar to plan and document, and that documentation is very important. So like because the development process is so fast tracked, communication is very important, and like sometimes communication can be slowed down, or a lot of the time if documentation is poor, if like not everybody is on the same page. So documentation is really stressed in extreme programming. Extreme programming also has other aspects of plan and document in it, but it's kind of like whatever the team feels they need to take from plan and document, they do for the project. But like you don't have to do. Pretty much it eliminates like the slower parts of plan and document that slows down the project. So you take the good stuff that doesn't really slow you down and kind of ignore all the rest of it. And extreme programming is part of. It's kind of like a way of implementing agile methodologies. Some people say extreme programming is like like a way of implementing agile methodologies, but it tweaks it a little bit to make the process as a whole faster. That's all I had for that question. It says describe the current 13 practices, but everywhere I found online it only had 12. So I don't know what to do.
It might be a typo.
Yeah.
Okay, 13 practices. Wait, which question is this?
4.
Okay.
It definitely says 13 practices, but all the lists I found online were 12.
Maybe in the.
Did you
I
check
don't
the
know.
textbook?
Yeah, I did not check the textbook now that I think about it. I could do that right now.
Let's see, 13 practices of extreme engine. What is it? Extreme.
Extreme.
Programming.
Yeah.
Extreme programming.
Hmm.
Oh wait.
Hmm?
Oh, okay. Sorry, I disconnected for a bit. I had to get up and move.
Wait, so where is. So what? It's the 13 aspects of what?
Extreme programming.
Just 13 practices?
Yeah.
I guess like ask her about it tonight.
Yeah, I might.
Hmm. Oh, hello. So
There's only 10 mentions of it in the whole entire textbook, so I don't know.
yeah, I can't find anything in mine or in my search.
Okay, well, I guess let's just go on for now.
If anything, just ask her if it is a typo or not. And I guess I could go. So I had question 13 and 20, and 13 is just a series of HTTP questions and IP questions and stuff like that. It's basically like internet protocol, and then 20 was test-driven development. So for part A, it's define and describe protocols on which HTTP is dependent, and well, it says TCP/IP, so or in the textbook, it says TCP and IP, and I guess those are the multiple protocols. So I just treated them as two different ones, and just defined it and described it. For B, I really don't know how else to elaborate on the significance of this IP address. It is just the local IP address, so I don't really know what else to say about it. C is why is or what is a port, how Y is it used, and what port is used by web servers. So I have the how and why a port is used in the first part, and it do I have to read it out? Should I like just read out my questions? Is that
Yeah.
I
okay,
guess.
well, yeah.
Or you can just like ask if you had any like if you weren't sure how to word something or like if you think you should elaborate.
Yeah, I don't know about how much more I can go into the significance of
Yeah.
the localhost IP address.
I don't think she's looking for like a crazy amount of detail on anything.
Yeah, I hope not, but because I feel like I haven't written anything like compared to you guys. I really just defined a lot and then elaborated a little bit on what they do.
It's fine.
Um, you know, the port number is 80 for HTTP and secure HTTP is 443. And then describe a URI and describe it in detail its basic structure. So I do describe its basic structure, which does it's the HTTP method, scheme, hostname, the port number, if it is optional, and resource path, query terms, and fragments. But I really don't know if like I should separately define all those. I kind of hope not, but I feel like I'm lacking in words. I don't know.
Yeah.
But
I think that question is just a lot of definitions.
yeah. So should I like define uh, all of these terms? I guess
I mean, if it says to define them, I would definitely do that.
it just says describe in detail. So it's like okay, well, I basically like showed its basic structure, but
Yeah, you could write like a sentence on what it is or like
okay. So I just like write. I'll just elaborate on those. Uh, uh, Half. Okay. Well, and then the next one is define and describe DNS. Hello. And would it be possible to make an internet connection without it? Yes, it is possible, but it's really disgusting. And I just define domain service name or domain name service system something, and explain how HTTP is a stateless protocol. I described what a stateless protocol is, and then the reason why HTTP is a stateless protocol. Um, it's pretty straightforward. I go to test-driven development, so it says define, explain the meaning of first, then acronym that we wrote down a bunch of quizzes beforehand. So that's that's basically it. I just defined the different steps. And then the next question is describe and explain what is meant by test-driven development. So I have a short paragraph on what test-driven development does for you and like what it essentially is, or like a sentence on the definition of it. And then I do define red, green, and refactor separately. And then the next question is define and describe RSpec, explain what it does, defined RSpec, and I described how RSpec relates to test-driven development in a very short paragraph. Explain code coverage and what it means. I define code coverage and why code coverage is valuable, and then also the 4 different code coverages. And next one is explain the following. of these testing methods, which is black, white, and gray box, immutation, and fuzz. I just wrote the definitions of all these. Um, I don't know if it, I don't know explain what is meant by the following test methods. So it's not like describe in detail or define. It's just like, I don't know.
I think that just means like, what is it? What is it?
Oh, okay.
I think that's all it means.
Yeah, I think you're fine.
Okay. I hope that's all it means.
It's a different way to say define this, because I think if you have like 20 questions to say define this, it would get kind of boring. So they just mix it up a little.
Okay. Oh, that's good. And then the last one is define exhaustive testing. Just have a sentence on exhaustive testing, and it cannot be implemented because it's just too much and impossible. The thing is, like, we had to put these in an answer template, and I didn't exactly do that before this hangout. But
Oh,
yeah, or it in like one of the things that she handed out, or like the update to the finals document, there is like an answer template that I guess like before we meet at like 5:40 for class, we should have it in this format.
Oh, there's a different template now.
Yeah, so like in this we just put we had to like follow this stuff.
Where
And
did she
then
put that?
in let's see. On Slack, I'm pretty sure it's one of the Google Docs
Oh,
that
did she
she
share it
sent out.
yesterday at 7:30 p.m.? Is that the one?
Yeah, that one.
So,
So now I'm just like copy the answer template and then like just fill it in because for this collaborators part is actually our team part, right? So yeah, the collaborators part is our team part, and then reviewer is when we go to every other team and then start reviewing theirs and then updating their answers, and then refactor is like anytime in between uh, anytime until the end of whenever she wants these graded, we can refactor the questions.
alright. I just
Yeah.
emailed you guys the link to the Hangout, just so you know.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
so wait a second. Okay, so basically, okay, so we should do this before we get there, definitely for each one.
Yeah. So one thing that I think she said we should have is so like this is the answer to our question, and then I think everyone has to make a comment on the question or like on the answers.
Mm-hmm.
So that's
If
just
you look
really
at if you go to like the thing that she posted, there is a she did it for question 1.
yeah.
So like there's something to look at.
But I think she
Oh,
expects.
buddy.
Oh, never mind. No comments. Oh, okay, I guess that's fine then.
Library comments none, updated answers same as the original. So then the reviewer, I guess, is what we do. Oh wait, reviewer is reviewer us, and then refactors are
Um,
who's are in class.
Collaborators are us. So like this team we put in the collaborators and like the URL, that's what we put. Reviewer is what we're gonna be doing tonight with how we're gonna
Everybody?
review other teams' answers, yeah.
Okay, and then who are the refractors? Oh, the refractors are just like the updated answers.
Refactor is like if you want to update it after we meet as like a class again,
Oh,
and then you can just refactor the comments.
okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. We can uh I
And
don't
then-
know if, yeah, I guess we can just put nothing for comments.
Yeah, because we really didn't. I think everything looks good to me. But also, make sure you
We all put references.
well, that I guess, but also more like finish. Make sure you press finish on your pivotal tracker.
Oh.
Yeah.
I don't know if we have to press deliver also, but I pressed finish and now it does.
No, you
deliver.
just press finish. I think they press deliver.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. And we can always ask her during class.
Yeah. Okay. Well, as I think I'm done pretty much.
Yeah.
So are we good?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. See you guys at 5:40.
Yeah,
But
peace,
Mhm.
guys.
we're never.
Okay.